to the Montana Real Estate Channel. If you're a subscriber, welcome back. We're glad to have you. If you're new to the channel, be sure to tap on that logo on the lower right-hand side of your screen there so that you'll be notified whenever we come out with a new video about communities in Western Montana. I'm Craig Cyphers, and along with my daughter Erica, we work with Cyphers Family Real Estate, and family's been helping folks transition into Montana and around the state, helping them buy and sell real estate since 1966. And everything you need to know in order to get a hold of us, whether you're going to call, text, or give us an email, all the information is in the description below. So we'd love to be a resource for you. Today, we're going to be in Great Falls for our third video on our series of videos about the Great Falls community. And today, we're going to concentrate on Lewis and Clark coming up the Missouri River and around the Great Falls of the Missouri. We're also going to talk a little bit about Charlie Russell and his influence in Western art in America. So we look forward to sharing this with you. I hope you enjoy it. Please comment and subscribe, and we'll stay till the end of the video and know that we appreciate you. Thank Clark. A Corps of Discovery set out from St. Louis on May 21st, 1804 to explore the Louisiana Purchase, and they traveled up to Mandan, North Dakota. Then they went over to Great Falls, Montana. Then way down into Idaho, up through the Bitterroot Valley, over Nez Perce Trail in Idaho to Fort Clatsop. And then on the return trip, they took different routes, and Lewis went north back up to the Great Falls. Clark went down through the Lemhi Valley in Idaho. Then they all met back up near Newtown, North Dakota. And then they went back down to St. Louis and ended their trip back in September of 06. A few miles north of Great Falls is Giant Springs State Park and home to the Lewis and Clark Interpretive Center, managed by the United States Department of Agriculture.
Here we are at the Lewis and Clark Interpretive Center here in Great Falls. It's just down the river. It's the Missouri River, and there are a series of falls over a 15-mile area. There's a drop in 500 feet in elevation. So it created these falls. It goes back to about 13,000 years ago when this area was underwater. You might remember Glacial Lake Missoula. We talked about it with regard to Missoula. We talked about it with regard to Big Fork. And here in the Great Falls area, we also had a sheet of ice that created this great body of water, and then the falls ended up coming out of that. So we'll go take a look at Black Eagle Falls. There's a couple other falls and dams, and we'll go to the Great Falls as well, kind of wrap up our video on Great Falls.
First falls is Black Eagle Falls, which drops some 26 feet. Then there's Colter Falls, which is now submerged due to Rainbow Dam. Then Rainbow Falls, falling about 44 feet. Crooked Falls, 19-foot drop. And the Big Falls, or the Great Falls, has about a 87-foot drop. And here we see the island out there that's called Steamboat Island because it resembled a steamboat. So our first falls in the series of 5 falls is Black Eagle. It took the Corps of Discovery a month to portage around the series of falls, and the falls were so named because the explorers saw a Black Eagle perched in a tree near the falls on an island. And 86 years later, the Boston and Montana Consolidated Smelter Complex overlooking the island, and the smelter there processed copper from Butte until 1918. And it was first known as the Amalgamated Copper Company. Now, Marcus Daly, if you'll remember him from many of our previous videos, he purchased the Anaconda Mine in Butte in 1880 and partnered with several folks, including George Hurst, to develop the mine. But prior to the construction of the smelter, in 1890, the Black Eagle Dam was constructed to supply electricity to the new community of Great Falls at a cost about $515,000. And that's why we call Great Falls the Electric City. Now, there are 3 communities in the shadow of that 506-foot smokestack of the smelter. And they were Little Chicago, Little Milwaukee, and North Great Falls. And eventually in 1917, a post office was established at the Little Chicago, and it was officially named Black Eagle at that time. And it is a census-designated area with a population of about 949 folks as of the 2020 census. Now we're headed out to see the Great Falls of the Missouri. So we're going to go to the big falls here. You can see beautiful flat land, lots of wheat. This is big farm country. We're just traveling out here. This is on the western edge of the Great Plains, and we're just a little bit west and south of Fort Benton, Montana, where basically the steamboats came in from St. Louis.
Here we are at Ryan Dam, which sits just above the Great Falls of the Missouri. And just imagine Lewis and Clark coming up this way, porting around, they portaged around the dams, or excuse me, the falls. And then over the years, starting in 1915, the various dams were put in at the location of the falls. So we're going to walk up here and take a look over the viewing area. This is Ryan Dam Powerhouse, and we'll take a good look at what the Great Falls look like.
We're just going to take a quick little trip here across the walking suspension bridge over the river to an island where there's a great little park. And then we'll be able to look from a higher vantage point at the Great Falls of the Missouri. If you've ever been whitewater rafting, you can imagine, of course, the Corps of Discovery coming across the Great Falls. The only difference is that they were coming upstream as opposed to going downstream. And there's the powerhouse, Ryan Dam. And it's really quite something. And of course, it produces a lot of electricity across the Northwest. It's a particularly nice day and listening to the birds, but it's a little wary of the rattlesnakes. But we're going to go up here and take a look at the falls. That's the Great Falls of the Missouri. Kind of slowed Lewis and Clark's Corps of Discovery down a little bit, but they carried on and got out to the Pacific Ocean.
In Great Falls, we have the Charlie Russell Museum. Charles Marion Russell, also known as C.M. Russell or Kid Russell, was one of the most influential Western artists of the early West. He was born in St. Louis in 1864. Eventually, as a teenager, ended up moving to Montana as a young man. He was a ranch hand, but really documented through painting, sculpture, and other art forms the West. He did about 2,000 plus paintings, 4,000 pieces of art across the board, whether it was watercolors, oils, and bronzes. To give you an idea, his Pagan painting sold, I believe, for just over $5 million at about 2005. His artwork is very sought after by collectors. To give you an idea, I had a friend of mine who was a gold and silver guy. Man came in with 2 watercolors that were original and were authenticated to be Charlie Russell originals, and they were on about an 8.5 by 11 size canvases, watercolors. And Kevin gave him 20,000 bags of silver and took those to the Charlie Russell auction and got $250,000 for those watercolors. So that was a pretty good investment. So if you get a chance, if you get into Great Falls, check out Charlie Russell. We'll just go around the museum area here and I'll show you some stuff.
So this is Charlie Russell's home in Great Falls. It was built in 1903. And then right next to the house was his studio, which was a log structure. It was actually made from telephone poles. And so the cabin in the city was where Charlie Russell did some of his most important work and chronicled the history of the West in paintings and bronze, watercolors, oils, etc. And if you'll remember from our Bitterroot South video, we went to Sula, talked about Ross's Hole, and of course we mentioned it when we were in our Helena video. But a very famous and quite large Charlie Russell painting is at the Capitol in Helena, and that is Lewis and Clark meeting the Indians at Ross's Hole. Well, we hope you enjoyed this video on Great Falls. This was kind of featured the Lewis and Clark's adventures into the Great Falls of Montana and taking a quick peek at Charlie Russell. And if you haven't subscribed, we invite you to do so and look for our next video on Great Falls, which will really highlight the real estate of the area. So thanks very much. We appreciate you. We're Cyphers Family Real Estate since 1966.